Duh.
I'm the god of thunder and lightning! Ka-chow! Hello everyone, I'm K-Swope, and in this installment of K-Swope versus the MCU, which by the way, we're reviewing every MCU film building up to Avengers Doomsday coming out later this year. In this episode, we are going to be reviewing Thor: The Dark World. Now, this is a really interesting movie to talk about. This is a very controversial Marvel movie, so I'm really excited to dive into it. Before we do, here's this video is going to look. I'm going to talk about the good things about the movie, the bad things about the movie, have some notes at the end, and then come together and give it a rating on a scale from 1 to 10. 1 being the cinematic equivalent to stepping on a Lego brick, and 10, of course, being the Citizen Kane of superhero films, which this is not. Now, I do want to ask a question, and we're going to answer this question, but do you think this is the first bad MCU film? That is a really, really good question. I'll answer it myself as we go through some of these things, but as we do, let's start talking about the good things I found about the movie. And in case you don't know, this film is the first Marvel film, period, to use the Marvel Studios fanfare, okay? And that little music, the one's like, dun, dun, dun. Yes, this is the first one, because if you go and actually look on the soundtrack, Brian Tyler did the score for it, and he's the one who made that little sound piece for the Marvel Studios opening. So that's really, really cool. Got to give a lot of credit to that, because that started here. Right after that, we start off, and we have more Anthony Hopkins narrating again, which I mentioned before in the Thor thing that I love, but there's not as much of that in this. But they're talking about a previous story, battling the Dark Elves and that kind of thing, and how they tried to bring in some era of darkness or whatever, you know, supervillainy things. And that whole battle sequence feels very Zack Snyder, and I love it for that, because it reminds me specifically of the scene from Zack Snyder's Justice League when Darkseid is showing up trying to find the anti-life equation. They're showing when he arrived before and the previous people who fended him off and that kind of thing. It gives me those vibes hardcore. The lighting and the cinematography is like almost identical, and so that's really cool. Got to give a lot of credit to that. This film also introduces a new character. This character we only see in one MCU film, and that of course is this one, and that of course is Ian, the intern. And he's a fun character, so I don't know, every scene he was in, he added to it, and so I really, really liked that and made it a lot more funny. And not to mention, Darcy keeps calling him the intern instead of Ian, and it's just, I don't know, I found that funny. It tickles my sense of humor, and so I really, really enjoyed that. But something else I enjoyed is we get a pretty solid cameo from Chris Evans in this, where Loki is basically, you know, he's going around trying to disguise himself with Thor and stuff, and he's throwing around ideas of who he can disguise himself as, and so he throws Chris Evans, Captain America, on for, you know, a little bit, and it's really, really funny. He's wearing his, you know, Avengers getup, and so I enjoyed seeing that. That was really, really fun. I was gonna say, the chemistry between Thor and Loki is really good in this film, I've also noticed, because they have a lot of banter, and this is banter that we see kind of keep going on and progressing, especially in like Thor Ragnarok, for example. Ragnarok, we see that like taken to the next level, and I do like that movie, so we're going to talk about that at a later time. But in the meantime, we see the groundwork laid here, and I of course very, very much liked seeing that. They have a really fun dynamic. I also think it's really interesting too, generally just seeing what's been going on with Thor since Avengers, where I guess Avengers may have been part of this, but after everything that took place in the movie Thor, the Nine Realms have been in disarray because Asgard has not been around since the Bifrost was destroyed to help keep peace and order. So Thor is basically on cleanup duty, and Avengers was probably a big part of that, I would think, and it also explains why he hasn't seen Jane Foster and all this kind of crazy stuff. I think he's also, you know, a bit nervous to see her because it's been so long and he's been so out of contact and things like that. But if you remember back to the first film, they were getting ready to crown Thor the King of Asgard at the very beginning, and it just got delayed, and then he became unworthy and all this stuff happened. And then, you know, with everything that took place in the movie Thor, cleanup duty that we're brought into, we basically find out at the end of the film, Odin offers the throne to Thor, and Thor turns it down in a very, very good sign of maturity, if you will. He says that he'd rather be a good man than a king, and that was really, really fascinating because he's come a really long way, and that really shows a lot of character development. And I honestly felt really, really satisfied with hearing that, and you know how Thor is going to progress afterwards. Plus, this just feels really coherent and consistent, and I very much enjoyed it. I also very much enjoyed the mid-credit scene, guys, because the mid-credit scene of this film, if you don't remember what happens, different than Warriors 3 and stuff, they take the Aether to the Collector, okay, the guy from Guardians of the Galaxy. And so that makes me really excited because Guardians of the Galaxy, spoiler alert for the rest of K-Swope versus the MCU, is a top tier one for me. I'll put it like that. I won't go into too much crazy detail yet, but it is a top tier one that I really, really like. And so I really love how that's going to tie into things. Really excited to get to that one, which I have, I think, 2 more movies to go to, and then I hit Guardians of the Galaxy. And it is one of the films I'm looking forward to talking to the most, to be entirely honest. But this is not the Guardians of the Galaxy review. This this is Thor: The Dark World. So I give you that information. And that, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, ends the good section already. And so we're talking about the bad section, and I kind of want to loop back to my initial question. Is this the first bad MCU film? And I'll put it like this. I'm going to touch on a lot of this as we go into it, just to give my bad section just a preface. There's one thing that I think is worse than being a bad film, and that is being a boring film, okay? But I will say this. I don't think this film is a bad film per se. I don't think it's a poorly made film or a poorly scripted film. I just think it's a poorly executed film, if that makes any sense. Now, let's dive into what I mean by that a little bit and go through some of my grievances. For one, the plot feels slow. And especially when you have these long films, I don't like a long film that feels slow, okay? Because then it feels long and it's just not fun at all, okay? If it's a long film, there has to be at least a lot of solid places where the pace really picks up. And this film had a few fight scenes and stuff, but the fight scenes felt almost, for lack of a better term, stagnant. Like there wasn't a whole lot going on. There weren't like massive stakes, if that makes any sense. I mean, some people died and stuff like that, which we're going to talk about later. But regardless, I just felt like they were fighting for the sake of fighting, or they just kind of threw in fight sequences for the sake of throwing in fight sequences, and it just seemed really like, I don't know, pointless action, and I really don't like that. I also think the Dark Elves are dull and boring. I think comparing the Dark Elves to Loki, right? Loki, who was the villain of the first Thor and Avengers, he's a very complicated character, and so as you're watching him do things, you're trying to think like, okay, what's his angle? What's going on here? The Dark Elves are boring. They're just like, oh, we just want to bring eternal darkness because we came from the dark and blah, 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 and it's just like, yeah, whatever. I mean, it's just so generic. It's generic villain crap, and I'm just so tired of it. Also, for some weird reason, they decided to make Dr. Eric Selvig crazy, and I don't know why. They don't explain that at all. If he, I don't know, maybe went crazy after the events of Avengers, that would make sense, but he's just crazy in this film, and they don't explain it. He's just running around Stonehenge with a bunch of fancy, science-y equipment, butt naked, and I'm like, why? That's so dumb.
It's so dumb.
It's so dumb, it's brilliant.
No! It's just dumb.
I also think, too, someone else thinks kind of dumb. The Aether does not make sense. They never explain what it actually does and how it can be used. It's just Jane Foster bumps into it, and then it, I don't know, symbiotes to her or whatever, and then they gotta find a way to remove it, and they do remove it, and it's like, they don't really explain what it is and how it works. It's just the bad guy needs it to make things dark, and I'm just really confused. It's really dumb. I mean, it is the Reality Stones. Don't like how they handled that MacGuffin at all. I also think Malekith, whatever the guy's name, Christopher Eccleston, by the way, okay, who's the Ninth Doctor from Doctor Who, okay, can't knock him for that. Villain is boring. He's just as dull as the Dark Elves, and I really just don't care about him. It's like, he could be cannon fodder for all I care. He's one of the most forgettable villains in the MCU, and you can quote me on that. Another issue I have with this one also is, it's kind of funny, because I talk about the Iron Man films a lot when I was going through those. I mentioned the sizzle, okay? And the sizzle, because you talk about the sizzle and the steak, right? The sizzle is how cool and fun it is, and the steak is how actually well-written of a movie is it, and kind of the balance between that, and that's kind of why I'm very skewed towards some of the Iron Man films, even though there are some that are definitely better movies than others. This film, at least for me, for my taste, has no sizzle. It has no sauce. It's just, I don't know, like, hey, here's your well-done steak. That's how this film feels to me, if that makes sense, okay? And trust me, no one in the right mind likes a well-done steak, okay? I'm not apologizing for that because it's true. Also, CGI in this film is mid, as I mentioned in my Iron Man 3 review, if you have not seen that one. That post-Avengers, that's when we start seeing the CGI start to slowly trickle downhill in the MCU. And again, it's not that it's bad yet, it's just that it's getting worse. I think one of the biggest sins that this film commits is they kill off some characters, and I just don't care. For one, Thor's mom dies. I really don't care. They gave us no reason to like Thor's mom specifically, and it's different because, again, I mentioned in Avengers, I mentioned in Iron Man 3, when they fridge or semi-fridge a character, it's usually, you know, they do it pretty good. You know, they give you as a viewer a reason to kind of feel for that and relate with the characters and what they're feeling, right? But, I mean, they didn't really give me anything for that. It was just kind of blah. It was whatever. I mean, it gives Loki a little bit of motivation to behave a little bit, but that's really all it does in the film. And I mean, I think Thor's mom's like one of the most forgettable characters in the MCU anyways, because if it weren't for me rewatching Thor, I would have forgot that she even existed. And so, because Odin is a big deal, because he's the All-Father, he's the king of Asgard and all this stuff. But yeah, Thor's mom, no one ever really cared about her. Not to mention, Loki dies, and by dies, I mean not really, but convinces people that he does die. I also just didn't care for it that much. I know that it was fake and stuff, but I tried to put myself in the mindset where it's like, okay, if I did not know that this was already not the case? Would I feel a certain way? And the answer at the end of the day was no. And I don't know what the thing is. I don't know if the problem's with me or with everybody else, but people seem to like love Loki so much, specifically like white girls. They love Loki. They're like, oh, Loki, he's the best. He's a great villain. He's just misunderstood and all this stuff. And like, yeah, but he's not that great, okay? Like, I don't get the appeal to the character, if that makes any sense. I just never found a reason to like him specifically. I mean, he's a good villain. He's an enjoyable villain, but I don't have that deep an attachment to him. So when he dies, I'm just like, oh well. So at the end of the bad section here, again, answering my question, I don't think this is a poorly written film or it's not a good film in concept and theory. Like, it checks the boxes, but the problem is that it's very boring, like I said. And because it's boring, it makes it really, really not enjoyable for me to watch. So is it technically bad by the standard of the steak? No, the steak is fine. But as far as the sizzle, there is none, if that makes sense. Hopefully I'm making some sense to you guys that, you know, the meat and potatoes of it is, it's fine. It's a passable film. But as far as the extra stuff to make it cool and interesting, keep my attention, it's got nothing. And so I found it really hard to sit through this. I think this is the first time I've actually sat down and watched this film straight through, to be quite honest. And I totally know why I haven't done it like this before, because it's just a slog to get through, to be quite honest. And it is not one that I particularly enjoy or plan on revisiting anytime soon, for a long time, probably, to be quite honest. It'll be a long time until I revisit Thor: The Dark World. Before I get too carried away, though, and get into my rating, I do have a note. That note being that one of the dudes from the Warriors 3 was recast with Zachary Levi. Does that change anything? No, absolutely not. But either way, Zachary Levi, I do like. He's fun. He's Shazam. That's fun. He's Chuck. That's fun. And so, yeah, I'm generally a fan of his work. And so I really do enjoy seeing him. Again, it doesn't really change anything for me in the movie and the enjoyment or anything. It kind of plays no stakes, but regardless, worth bringing up. But do I like Zachary Levi enough to give this film a good rating? No. It gets a Thor out of 10. I mean, 4 out of 10. And ladies and gentlemen, that is my rating of Thor: The Dark World. It was kind of a fast one because I wanted to get it over with, because this was one of the few films I'm looking forward to the least to rewatch and review. So I figured rip that band-aid off. Don't waste too much time. Just get to the point, and that's what I did. The next one, by the way, is Eternals. So that's going to be something. But regardless, what do you think of Thor: The Dark World? Do you agree with my stance being that it's not really a poorly written movie, just a poorly executed one that's really boring? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Again, Love and Thunder is also coming up. I know people hate that one for many other reasons, almost like the exact opposite of why this film is. But regardless, fun to talk about. And if you guys have any other ideas or opinions, make sure to leave a comment. And if you like this video, want to see more like it, want to see the rest of Case Whoopers the MCU, hit that subscribe button. That'd be greatly appreciated. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, there's only one God. It is Jesus, and he loves you. And I will see you in the next one.